like to call the meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to order. If you would, if you have your cell phone, please silence your cell phones. And then if you wish to speak during citizens communication time, it'd be beneficial for us if you would fill out a citizens communication card there, get it to our city clerk. You don't have to fill one of those out. I have one tonight. Somebody's requested to speak already, so if you would like to do that, you're welcome to do that. So at this time, we'll have a roll call. Heather?
Hollibush.
Present.
Odom.
Here.
Minor.
Here.
Peavy.
Here.
Teeters.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. All right, at this time, we'll stand for our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Director Terry Peavy.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, this evening, as we gather here to begin this meeting, I'm just so thankful for this beautiful spring day, for this board, and for our hardworking city employees. I'm also reminded that when doors shut, if we are willing to ask for guidance and wait, that's when a door can be open. And we do ask this evening for guidance as we strive to work for the betterment of our city. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. At this time, we're moving right along on our agenda. We'll have our consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight, we have the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on March the 4th. We also have a consent agenda item. It's to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase a crew cab 3/4 ton pickup truck for the Public Works Department. So those are our two items on the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion from the board to approve of the consent agenda?
Mayor, I make a motion that those two items must stay on the consent agenda.
Should we just make a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollibush.
Here. Yes.
Odom.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes, that was a yes vote, Heather. I'm sorry about that. Moving right along, we have two items on our regular agenda tonight. The first item is item number 3, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city managers to submit a Section 108 loan application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the rehabilitation of the Old Boys and Girls Club. This is sponsored by Director Terry Peavy and Assistant Public Works Director Tracy Lee. Tracy Lee's here along with our Public Works Director Kyle Richards. Welcome, and the floor is all yours.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, Dr. Haskins, Board of Directors. I'm not going to go into the history of how this started because I think you're all aware of that, but I do want to speak on what the Section 108 loan is that we're applying for. The Section 108 is HUD federal community development dollars. As the city is an entitlement city for the CDBG program, we receive an annual entitlement. All we have to do is submit our annual plan for each year. The Section 108 allows the city to borrow 5 times that year's entitlement. We are requesting $884,871 for this loan to rehab the Boys and Girls Club. The city had an architect take a look at the building, and the architect looked at if the building was sound, and if it wasn't, what it would cost us to build a new building. But the architect went in and realized that the structure itself was sound, so we could essentially do a rehab, and that's why we came to this amount based on what the requirements would be to rehab that building. The requirements of the Section 108 loan is it has to meet a national objective. This program meets that national objective because it's in a low to moderate income area, which is 69.9% low income. The plan must generate revenue, and as you know, the building itself, the facility itself won't generate revenue, so we had to come up with another way to bring tax dollars into the city. That is our softball showcases. We intend to add soccer tournaments, basketball tournaments, and also the renting out of the facilities for events and meetings. That is going to help generate some income for the maintenance of the building, but the actual tax dollars that would go to support this loan if for some reason the CDBG program actually went away. We have never seen that program go away. We don't anticipate that it will. This loan can be paid for out of our annual entitlement. It won't hinder any other line items in the budget, as public facilities is that line item, and the majority of the things that we pay for out of public facilities has gone to improvements of the parks, our roads, sidewalks, and things like that. We anticipate that it will be no more than $50,000. We're hoping that it will be an annual cost of $30,000. I also want to touch on some of the environmental requirements. Typically, we would have to pay for an environmental study, but because ADCOG did a phase 1 and a phase 2 in 2011 and 2012, we no longer have to pay for that, so that won't be an expense for this project. However, there was some notes in there in terms of asbestos, but there's nothing preventing us from moving forward with this project. They just gave us some recommendations on if it is disturbed, how to remediate that.
And but that remediation then is gonna be handled by an environmental company or something that is taken care of. Cost of the 880.
Correct. One of the questions that I've been asked by the city manager is if this will affect any city funds in terms of staffing. No, because the plan is for us to staff it with our existing staff, which we've put $65,000 in the actual grant proposal. That money is already budgeted and allocated every year out of A&P. So none of this will actually hit the city's budget. The other question that I was asked was if all of the startup money that we put in the loan proposal was inclusive of that $884,000 loan request, and it is. Are there any other questions?
I just have a couple, and I'm sure there are some other board members that might have some questions. And naturally, having a finance background, I'm certainly hesitant about borrowing money and making sure that we have plans to pay it back. And I do support this initiative. I understand where we're at, and I understand where the loan is coming from. One of the things that I look at is, not everything is guaranteed. As we understand that if the CDBG were to go away, how would the city, fund this? Also, like your business plan and your business plan approach for at least 3 years out, where, if I'm not mistaken, we have anticipated maybe somewhere around $90,000 worth of income. So my first question would be, if the city were in a position to take that $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, whatever this loan payment ends up being, out of the Public Works Department, what services would we be doing away with? What disadvantage would we have in Public Works by having to spend that money if we did not have the CDBG funds to pay that back?
We wouldn't be hindering any other projects, as we typically will budget at least $50,000 in capital outlay for parks. In most years, we may use maybe $10,000 of that.
When I noticed also in your proposal, and we know that this proposal has been vetted for months, it met all the requirements, the paper requirements, the publishing requirements, all of those types of things. I was just curious, when this was posted on Facebook, that how many positive or negative response from the community did you receive?
We didn't really receive any negative responses. It was reached by 2,373 people. Most of the comments were, this is a good thing for our city. I'm glad it's finally happening. We've had organizations to say they want to be a part of it. They want to do fundraisers to help us with the program. And just a few days ago, we received an email from a church, and they're wanting to be a part of it as well. And we have other nonprofit organizations that have approached us and said, hey, when y'all get this going, we would like to be a part. And many of them have offered to do fundraisers and parts, go after grants to help fund the staffing of it.
I noticed on the startup requirements where we discuss insurance, one of the things that I would want to make sure of too is that when we do have this renovated and that we are holding events there and renting this facility out for whatever the purposes may be, is that included in that $7,800 or $8,000 worth of insurance costs, that we have liability insurance that protects the city.
Yes.
I've noticed, I'm familiar with, in some organizations, they do things called hold harmlesses, where each individual participant has a hold harmless they sign so that the city cannot be held responsible for things that go on down there. Has that been covered?
Pretty much when we send over our contracts for partnership to George, he stipulates, if that's not already in there, that needs to be included. So that will be included in all of our contracts.
And then just wrapping up, just a couple more questions. When we get over to the balance sheet with your startup assets, I want to make sure, one, you clarified that the $65,000 is already budgeted. It comes out of A&P. That's where Adam or whoever's going to run this facility would be there at that time. And then when we get down to the long-term assets of $514,000, that is the value of the current building plus the property that there is now. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so once we renovate it, the increase in that value with the stated value of that property will be the 1.5 million almost.
Correct.
Okay. And I would hope that in the business plan, at some, and I know that you've touched on this some in the stuff that I've read and the research that I've read, is that the city's long-range plan would be, which would be 3 years, it looks like to me, is that we would have a long-range plan to make this self-sufficient.
Correct.
That would be one of the things that would concern me, not only as a citizen, but as mayor, is that we don't end up with a facility that we're putting $800-something thousand in, and it be vacant like it is now. So there would be an effort put forth by the city and the city staff to make sure that when we get it renovated, it looks like that 3 years from now, and that if it makes that $90,000, that we could actually utilize that $90,000 for the $30,000 or $40,000 annual payment that comes about with it, because you're also going to have additional staff if all these events hold true. It can't be run by 1 or 2 people.
Correct. In terms of the staffing, what we had planned to do was partner with nonprofit organizations and allow them to staff it through their grants.
And you've had interest from them now too, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Tracy, thank you. That's all the questions that I have. Is there another director that would like to ask Ms. Lee questions?
I have one question. Is it in the plan so that there will be a connection, a pathway, or cars, maybe just a walk path, but between there and the Pondexter Park, so that it will all be one sort of connected?
There
area?
is. We already have grant funding for those trail connections. It is with A.L. Franks Engineering, and we're hoping that construction will start.
Hopefully in summer, maybe fall this year.
So there will be a connection.
Good.
It'll be a walking trail?
Yes, ma'am.
Basically, okay.
About donating one of the schools that's going to be vacant, for instance, College Hill Elementary or Union School. I know that, but she stated to me that maybe Union School would be more up for grab, because I know that our police department had asked for one in the school, and I don't know if that been finalized or not, but I would also think that I don't see no problem that somehow Boys and Girls Club is put to one of these vacant schools along with the police department. If that's not an issue there, then I noticed that, I could say about a year ago, that Lowe's was gonna come forward and help revise this building here, but I'm gonna say politics got in the way of that. And then, politics more likely got in the way of that, cause from my understanding that some group of Lowe's had met with Jeff Whitman that Friday, and then there was a walkthrough that Monday, but this board took action on me, like I was the culprit around the so-called walkthrough, like I had went in there and opened up that gym and went in there and done something which I had no business doing. But then again, like I said, politics got in the way. And then my other thing is about the asbestos that's in the gym on the floor, and it's most of them on the floor. I had asked for another copy of the environment report prior to this board meeting, but apparently I asked for it two different ways. One about the Freedom of Information Act, which I know I did that Friday, which I know you got 3 days to answer that, but I know I probably wasn't gonna get that. Also, I took a letter down into Public Works and to the current Public Works Director, but he was out of the office Friday, and I just got through talking to him, and he said that he would eventually get that to me. But I would also recommend that each one of y'all look at that environment report there. Then the other issue is crossing the business highway. How is that really gonna be tackled, this and that? And then if it's an issue about a basketball court, there's other options you could use, like Jameson Center. You could build a basketball, you could enclose the current basketball court at the Iron Mountain Jameson Center or down there, and you can do that about the same thing. But also, I just want to know what big impact this gonna have with Ward 2 with regards to CBG money. I know you're only talking about $50,000, but I just now came from Washington, D.C., and there is a big talk. The current administration is talking about cutting CBG money, but it's up to the Congress to make the last word on that. But I don't think that money gonna be there. And I think that the city need to have a backup plan about that for us. So if the money is cut, what is they gonna use to keep on paying the money for the building and stuff? But other than that,
I think Director Harris, that a couple of those things have been addressed, and we can ask Tyler and Tracy about the environmental study. Has an official environmental study been done on that building?
Yeah, in 2011, there was a phase 1 done, which is virtually, it doesn't give any recommendations. It basically just states what the status of that property is right now. Phase 2 actually goes into details and what to do with those findings. The phase 1 didn't really find any concerns. They found a leaking petroleum tank from the property to the south of there back in 2007, but it's since been remedied. So there were no concerns there. In the phase 2, virtually the only thing that was brought up that we would have to mitigate would be any asbestos found in the building. And that's addressed as you come along with it. When they did their on-site review, they only found a small amount of asbestos on the exterior of the building, which that'll be taken care of with construction. Now,
with that asbestos survey, with my construction experience too, as well as that being in there, is that's
right.
with the building project, so the asbestos itself would not be an issue from that standpoint. But
Exactly.
if Director Harris would like a copy of that asbestos still, y'all would supply him with a copy of that.
Yeah, we certainly will.
And in regards to the school system and the campuses, I mean, I'm not familiar with the school system possibly donating one of those campuses. My first thought on that would be, and Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have a deadline to be able to submit this application for this funding. One, we don't own any school property, so if we were to obtain ownership of those properties, we would have to go through the legal process to obtain ownership if the school system was to give us that property. And two, the infrastructure at the Boys and Girls Club now is set for renovations with baseball fields, and it already has a gymnasium in place that would just have to be renovated. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
We've got an asset sitting there right now that has been vacant for years, and
Real quickly on the asbestos issue, just keep in and that issue. No.
Going to some of our campuses and discussing this with us, And I remember them mentioning that a couple of those elementaries, their plan was perhaps to use some for training facilities and for workshops. And if I'm not mistaken, the other elementary might be for maintenance and some of our repair and our bus storage and things. So I think the district is planning on using most of those facilities for other uses, if I'm not
We-
mistaken.
What I've understood as well.
And I did inquire about North Heights because it has a gym, but that is the facility that they will be using for their
Right, that will be an
maintenance.
elementary.
Mayor,
Yes,
if I may.
yes, ma'am.
Stand up. But right now, before I get going, let me just say thank you to Ms. Tracy Lee and Tyler for the work that you've put into this. Because after attending the training educational conference a year ago, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I'm a pretty quick learner at times, and we learned that there is money out there to be used as incentives for growing healthier communities. And it was presented to us in such a way, our team quickly got on board, growing a healthier Texarkana. And we come back, and I've talked to the city manager, I'm excited. I say, you know, and I was looking at my notes from a year ago, and the number one problem that I wrote down at that meeting, that we wrote down at that meeting, was where does the city stand on this Old Boys and Girls Club? Well, the city manager didn't hesitate to tell me, we have no money to renovate that much needed building. And so basically he just threw cold water on me. And I asked him, I said, well, would you all please be keeping an ear out and an eye open to different options that might become available to us that would be viable for us to use in order to bring back that building to be used as more of a multi-purpose building inside. And he said, yes, we will. It has been a year later. When a door was shut, we have no money to a low, can we go about getting a low income loan that will make this viable for us? I'm just really excited, even though it took a year. And like I said, we've got members. Cassandra, if you would, when you have an opportunity, come and introduce yourself and tell them why you're excited also. So if she could be given an opportunity at some point to speak, Mayor, I would appreciate that.
I do want to touch on one more of Director Harris's things in regards to the CDBG dollars. Every president has put CDBG on the chopping block. It has never happened. It was supposed to go away last year, but we saw a $16,000 increase in what the city received. They're requesting an additional $500 million this year, so we'll probably see another increase by the time we get our entitlement. This program is very strong and it's supported by too many. It's too many people, it's too many senators, it's too many representatives that don't want to see this program go away because it helps our communities, it helps our cities.
But there are park recreation funds available at this time. If that does not happen, if it was to go away,
Correct.
in a 2-year cycle to make plans to pay that, and I believe there
Project Director for the Texarkana Regional Center on Aging. We're an extension of UMS Hospital, and we got the chance last year to work with Director Peavy on this initiative to take action in Texarkana. And I just think it's a really great opportunity because it would allow my organization to come in, especially in a low-income area, and provide free evidence-based programming that would help with nutrition and physical activity for older adults, but not only older adults, children as well. So this is something I'm really excited about. And even though we say a year, at least it's on the table and it's taking action. So I'm really excited about that. We're also willing to go in and go for those grants that can also help with moving this initiative forward. So thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollowbush,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Present.
Brown,
Yes. All right. So the resolution passes, and I just want to reiterate too, that this is just the process of allowing us to apply for the loan.
That is correct.
We've not been granted the loan, so we're moving forward. The board has approved this resolution to allow the city and Tracy them to proceed with the application process to hopefully get it. So good luck, and hopefully we can get that done. All right. Moving right along to our last item on the agenda, as far as our regular agenda item, and that is to item number 4, is to adopt an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to purchase police mobile video and audio equipment. Chief Harrison is here, I believe, and the ordinance requires an emergency clause due to the time constraints to place the order to receive additional equipment at no charge. Chief Harrison?
Good afternoon, Mayor, board members. Our current L3 in-car camera system and body cameras are out of warranty and obsolete. We've tested newer cameras. For a total of $119,410. If we place the order before March the 22nd, WatchGuard will throw in a free camera valued at $5,195. For that reason, we're asking the board tonight to consider emergency clause if you decide to pass this ordinance. Funding source for this project does not include any city general funds. $11,112 Justice Assistance Grant, $20,827 drug seizure, $40,000 a drug asset forfeiture account, $23,735 insurance turnback money for damaged and wrecked cars, and $23,735 from U.S. Marshals inmate funding. Any questions?
I have one question,
Yes,
Chief. This money coming from these other funds doesn't in any way deter or zero those out, in other words, for future uses, correct? This is just,
Some of them it does.
some of them it does?
Yes, ma'am.
But in your opinion, it's definitely worth it to do?
Well, we're trying to pay our own way this time.
Right.
Next time, we'll have to have 10 more cameras for about $80,000.
Okay.
And we'll be coming to you, to the board, and asking for that later on this year, probably.
Thank
Do
you.
you have a time frame on that, Chief, as to when we might need
No,
that?
sir, it depends. When we get some cars in and get those outfitted, we won't put them in the existing patrol cars. Probably be midsummer or fall, so it'd be close to the first of the year, if not the first of next year.
I think one of the things that when I read cameras and the systems that we have now are basically obsolete, which means it's gonna be very difficult to get parts and
There's
get
no
them
part
repaired,
source, that's correct.
et cetera, because we've had them for so long, and only thing we were able to do was do like a software upgrade in 2015 that really didn't help much.
That's right.
And these, he has tested this company that you're proposing, this WatchGuard, and they're like tenfold better than what we have now.
They are, the only competitor is Axon, and their storage is in the cloud, and there's a very expensive monthly fee for that, so it's cost prohibitive.
And these are fixed costs, and those storage will be stored on a hard drive.
That's correct.
And how many?
10.
10.
Or 12 and one free one if we do the emergency clause tonight, so it'd be 13.
13, but paying for 12.
Yes, ma'am.
And we get a good warranty on these?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we have I know it's not a guarantee, but in the foreseeable future, this company will stand behind their product if we need parts, and they won't say, never mind.
State police and Little Rock, all the large agencies in state
Are
are
going to this
using
one?
WatchGuard.
Okay.
So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
In my experience with these, which I have very elaborate security systems at the credit union, and you've used them before, so, is that technology outweighs the pace of those, but as they start outweighing them, this company will upgrade these.
That's correct.
On an ongoing basis, so you're not in a 15-year gap trying to replace what's already there. They'll start coming in with technology and replacing those, because
Usually every
there's
year.
probably a better camera out there right now than what we're buying.
Exactly.
It's being developed,
Right.
so.
They say it's not, but
That's
it
how-
probably is.
It's not on the market yet.
That's right.
Right.
Any other questions for Chief Harrison?
What is the turnaround time? I mean, you order them and does WatchGuard?
That Chief Harrison has outlined.
Motion to adopt.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, given this an ordinance, it would require 3 times reading.
I request it be read in its abbreviated form for its first reading, please.
So we have an amended motion to read the ordinance in its first reading in its abbreviated form. Travis, you still second that? Yes?
Second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to read the ordinance in its first reading in its abbreviated form. Could you call the roll, Heather?
Hollibish,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance waiving competitive bidding, authorizing the city manager to approve a contract for the purchase of police mobile video and audio equipment for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Okay, we have an ordinance read in its first reading. Do I hear a motion to have it read in its abbreviated form on its second reading?
So moved.
So we have a motion, we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to have it read in its abbreviated form, its second reading. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollibish,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance waiving competitive bidding, authorizing the city manager to approve a contract for the purchase of police mobile video and audio equipment for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Okay, the ordinance has been read in its second reading. Do I hear a motion to have it read in its third and final reading in abbreviated form?
Motion for third and final reading in abbreviated form, sir.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Director Minor, second by Director Odom to have it read on its third and final reading. Can you call the roll, please?
Hollibish,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance waiving competitive bidding, authorizing the city manager to approve a contract for the purchase of police mobile video and audio equipment for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Okay, the ordinance has been read in its third and final reading. Prior to the vote, is there any discussion? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak pertaining to this ordinance? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Do you need a?
Motion to adopt.
I need a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Man,
It was
I'm getting way
delayed, but
ahead
now
of
motion
myself.
to adopt.
Jeez.
Motion to
Do I have a
adopt the
motion
ordinance.
to adopt this ordinance, please?
Yes, so moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollibish,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. All right, ordinance passes. This ordinance also has requested an emergency clause, which has to be